My name's Daniel. I'm 29, and I've always been the quiet one in the family. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because no one ever really listened. I was the afterthought, the placeholder, the dependable one who didn't make a scene. While my sister Lauren lit up every room she walked into with her over-the-top drama and endless demands, I was the guy who worked behind the scenes, usually holding the camera, the door, or the bill. I'd been that guy for so long. I didn't even notice how deep I'd been sinking until it was too late. Or maybe I did, and just told myself it was temporary. That someday, they'd see I mattered too. Lauren was getting married. A beachside wedding, classy but casual, as she put it in the group chat that I wasn't even part of until someone forwarded me an invite to the bachelorette party invoice. That should have been my first red flag. Not the invitation, just the bill. $428, charged directly to my card without a word. When I asked her about it, she said, "You're good with money, right? It's not like you'll even notice." Then she laughed and hung up. I didn't argue. I told myself, it's her wedding. Just let it go. Be the bigger person. Again, that phrase had become my personal brand. What I didn't know was that this charge was just the first pebble in an avalanche. It started with small things, another mysterious payment on my credit card for wedding favors from Etsy, then a florist in the next town over, then a cake deposit from a bakery I hadn't even heard of. At first, I genuinely believed it was fraud. I called my bank, flagged the charges, and prepared to get a new card. But then came the kicker, an email from the venue with the subject line, "Final confirmation for the Harper Sanders wedding." And at the bottom, in fine print, the invoice was neatly attached. Paid in full, with my name on it, my billing address, my email. That was when it hit me. This wasn't fraud. It was family. When I confronted my mom, she didn't even flinch. "Sweetheart, we figured you'd want to help out. You know how tight things are right now, and we've done so much for you over the years. Remember your braces? Your first car? You owe us." I just stood there, stunned. That car she mentioned? It was a rusting Honda I'd bought myself from Craigslist with money I saved bagging groceries. The braces? Sure, they co-signed the loan, but I paid off every cent while working night shifts at the diner in college. I wanted to scream, but all I said was, "You used my card without asking." Her smile didn't even waver. "Well, we knew you'd say yes. So what's the difference?" The next day, I checked my statements. Over $18,000 in charges over 3 months. Every single major vendor was booked and paid using my account. Venue, photographer, DJ, caterer, florist. And what's worse, my name was nowhere on the wedding website. Not under special thanks. Not as a groomsman. Not even as a guest. I might as well have been the valet. Still, I didn't explode. I tried to have a conversation. I cornered my sister at her bridal shower, which, of course, I also unknowingly paid for. She looked up from her mimosa with that same smug smile she'd worn since she was 10 and told me, "Don't act like you're some saint. You're single. No kids. No life. You can afford it. Plus, it's not like you have a real family anyway." She said that like it was a fact, like it was something we'd all silently agreed on years ago. I drove home that night, parked in the garage, and just sat there in the dark for almost an hour, listening to the engine tick. My hands were shaking, not from rage, yet, but from something worse. Realization. The realization that this wasn't just a one-time betrayal. This was who they'd always been, and who I'd always allowed them to be. I pulled out my laptop and opened a spreadsheet I hadn't touched in months. I started documenting every charge. Cross-referenced emails, vendor receipts, confirmation codes. Every single stolen dollar had a timestamp. And the more I organized it, the calmer I got. Like sorting the chaos into neat little rows made it manageable. Like lining up dominoes just waiting to be flicked. There was still time. The wedding was 5 days away, and the balance wasn't settled. Not yet. The next morning, I played it cool. Showed up to brunch at my parents' house. Smiled when Dad joked about me finally showing up for something important. I bit my tongue when Lauren asked me to Venmo her another $200 for last-minute table decorations. I nodded, said I'd take care of it. And then I went home and printed every receipt, every email, every transaction history. I stacked them in a folder labeled Wedding Theft Evidence. By day 3, I had a plan. I knew the cancellation policies. I knew which vendors allowed reversals with 48 hours notice. I called the DJ, pretending to confirm the set list. Asked what name the deposit was under. "Daniel Carter," he said. "Paid in full." Perfect. Then I called the caterer. The same story. Photographer? Same. Each time, I added a check mark to the list. And then came the venue. The beachside estate Lauren had been bragging about for months. The one she said was a gift from the family in her last Instagram post. Champagne flute in hand, fake modesty in her caption, calling herself #blessed. She had no idea the family gift had come from one unwilling donor. I called the venue coordinator and asked a few routine questions. She was friendly, professional. I asked if there were any outstanding balance issues, and she laughed. Nope. You took care of everything, Mr. Carter. We even sent you a thank you box last week. A thank you box I never received. That was when I knew. This wasn't just financial theft. This was erasure. They weren't just using me. They were erasing me. Lauren was going to walk down that aisle, smiling in a dress I paid for, at a venue I financed, surrounded by vendors I unknowingly booked, while pretending the whole thing was some magical, communal act of love from the real family. And I was supposed to smile from the shadows, clap politely, cut another check. I shut my laptop and stared at the blank wall of my apartment. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just waited. Let the silence settle. Let the disappointment rot into resolve. And then I picked up the phone. It was 11:47 p.m. the night before the wedding. Every vendor had a phone number, and I still had access to every payment portal. By the time the clock hit midnight, I had one hand on the mouse, one hand holding my phone. And that's when I started dialing. The first call I made was to the DJ. His name was Marcus, and he answered groggily, like he'd just fallen asleep. Hello. Hey, sorry to call so late. It's Daniel Carter. I booked you for the Harper Sanders wedding tomorrow. Pause. Oh yeah, man. You good? Not really. Something's come up. Family emergency. I need to cancel. Another pause. This is super last minute. I know. I wouldn't call if it weren't serious. Just tell me what I need to do. He hesitated, but eventually agreed. Said he'd cancel the setup and refund the deposit since it was before the 12-hour window. I told him I appreciated it. As soon as the line went dead, I marked him as confirmed canceled in my spreadsheet. One down. The caterer was next. I'd already researched their policy. 50% refundable if canceled 12 hours prior. I called and spoke to someone from their night staff. Kara, I think. I gave my name, the invoice number, and the event details. She pulled it up and said, "Wait, you're the one who paid for this?" Yeah. Huh. The bride told us her father handled everything. She even emailed earlier to change the head count. Typical. I told her to reverse the charge, and she said she'd forward the request to billing. You'll have your refund in 7 to 10 business days. Click. 2 down. Then the florist. Their cancellation policy was stricter, but the balance wasn't fully paid yet, just a $500 deposit. I emailed and followed up with a voicemail, but I knew I'd get the refund. And even if I didn't, that's not what mattered anymore. It wasn't about getting the money back. It was about taking back the power. Each call, each click, each confirmed cancellation marked a moment I stopped being the family doormat and started being the damn storm. Around 1:30 a.m., I dialed the final number, the venue. This was the crown jewel. The oceanfront estate Lauren had been bragging about since the engagement. The one with the marble aisle walkway and the imported white rose arch. She said she'd found it on Pinterest and just had to have it. The cost? A little over $8,000. And every dime had come from my account. I called. Got a voicemail. Called again. Still nothing. Then, around 2:10 a.m., the on-call manager picked up. A guy named Trevor. I explained who I was, gave the invoice ID, and said, "I need to cancel the event for tomorrow." He was confused. "I thought you were checked in as a guest. The bride and family came earlier for rehearsal." That stopped me cold. They were already there? Trevor said, "Yeah, they're upstairs in the guest suites. They told us you wouldn't be attending." Of course they did. I clenched my jaw. Well, I paid for everything. And I'm telling you, cancel the event. Void the security deposit. Lock the gates. No one steps foot on that beach tomorrow. He sounded reluctant but professional. We'll need a formal request in writing. No problem. Check your email. It's already there. I hung up, opened the event portal, and hit cancel. A confirmation screen popped up. Refund pending. Reservation terminated. The timer beneath it read, "Refund approved, 2:17 a.m." I sat there, staring at the screen. The wedding was officially off. But I wasn't done yet. I printed every email confirmation. highlighted every refund, labeled the folders, and dropped the entire packet into a white gift box, along with a handwritten note. Consider this my wedding gift. Love, the non-family member who paid for everything. Then I drove to the venue. It was a gated estate, but the drop box outside the front office was still open. I slipped the box inside. No return address. No message. Just that one line. I drove away just before 3 a.m., passing the guest suite lights upstairs. I imagined Lauren asleep in a silk robe, dreaming about her perfect day. I imagined Mom smiling to herself, proud of how she'd manipulated me one more time. I imagined Dad checking the weather for the ceremony and setting his morning alarm. None of them knew. None of them had a clue that by the time the sun rose, their perfect little fantasy would unravel. I slept for 3 hours. No dreams. Just peace. At 6:52 a.m., I got a call from Lauren. I let it ring out. Then another from Mom. Declined. Then 3 messages in a row. Lauren, why is everything canceled? Mom, Daniel, what did you do? The vendors are saying you called. Lauren, the DJ refunded you. The caterer is gone. Where is the flower wall? I didn't respond. Then, at exactly 7 a.m., they each got an email. Subject line, wedding charges, reimbursement requested. Attached was a detailed breakdown of every payment made under my name, each with line items, totals, and confirmation numbers. No threats. No anger. Just facts. At 7:12 a.m., my phone rang again. Dad. I didn't answer. Instead, I poured myself a coffee, opened the window, and watched the sunlight start to break through the clouds. Because while they scrambled at the altar with no music, no guests, no food, and no flowers, I was finally enjoying the silence. But that wasn't the end. Because later that day, after everything fell apart, I got one final call that changed everything. The call came at 3:47 p.m. I recognized the number immediately. Not Lauren. Not Mom. Not Dad. It was Jordan, Lauren's fiancé. We'd barely spoken in the last year. He was always nice enough, polite when we crossed paths, but there was always this distance. Like he wasn't sure whether to treat me like her brother or her personal bank account. I picked up out of curiosity more than anything else. Hey, Daniel. His voice was low, controlled. But underneath that control was a tension I recognized immediately, one I'd felt countless times myself growing up in that house. Hey, I said flatly, waiting. He hesitated. I needed to talk to you. Privately. That caught me off guard. All right. There was a long pause. I don't know what happened this morning. Lauren's been screaming at everyone. Your mom's threatening to sue. Your dad is pacing like he's preparing for war. But none of them are making sense. They keep saying you sabotaged the wedding. I didn't say anything. He continued, quieter now. So I asked for the vendor info, checked the emails, and saw the name on every invoice. Another pause. I'm guessing you paid for all of it. I didn't deny it. He sighed. Why didn't you say anything? My hand tightened around the phone. Because it wouldn't have mattered. Just like nothing I ever say matters to them. They would have smiled, nodded, and found a way to twist it back on me. Just like always. He was silent for a moment. Yeah, I believe that. I was stunned. You what? I believe you. I've been watching the way they treat you. I noticed it during the engagement party. And again at the rehearsal. They talk about you like you're not even in the room. Like you're some employee who didn't show up for a shift. That surprised me more than anything else. I always assumed no one outside the family noticed. That I was invisible to everyone, not just to them. Jordan sighed. Look, I don't know what happened between you guys before today. But this whole thing, it's a disaster. And I need to ask you something. I braced myself. Did you cancel the wedding for revenge? Or to make a point? My stomach turned a little. Not from guilt, but from how loaded that question was. I canceled it, I said slowly, because it was mine. Every dollar of it. Every detail they took credit for. Every lie they told. And I was supposed to sit there tomorrow, nodding like a trained dog while they paraded me around like their little golden goose. I didn't cancel their wedding. I canceled mine. Silence again. Then Jordan said something I'll never forget. Thank you. I blinked. What? For not letting me marry into this circus blind. I didn't know what to say to that. I don't think he knew what to say either, because we both stayed quiet for a moment before he cleared his throat. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I needed to hear the truth. And you're the only one who gave it to me. We hung up not long after. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. A strange mix of emotions churned inside me. Relief, confusion, a strange flicker of vindication. I wasn't used to being believed, or thanked, or even seen. Later that evening, the fallout began. My aunt posted a vague but furious Facebook status about entitled children who destroy their siblings' dreams. Someone in the comments tagged me with a popcorn gif. My cousin messaged me asking what the heck was going on because Lauren showed up in her wedding dress to an empty beach, then had a meltdown and threw a chair into the water. I almost laughed. Almost. My mom, true to form, sent a long group text to the family blaming a certain ungrateful individual for ruining what was meant to be the happiest day of our lives. I didn't respond. I didn't have to, because a few hours later, a much quieter message came in. From my dad. It read, "We need to talk. It didn't have to be this way." I didn't reply, but I saved it, because it was the first time in years he acknowledged that I even had a say in how things were. Not long after that, my sister went dark online. No Instagram stories. No engagement posts. Nothing. I checked the wedding website out of curiosity. It had been taken down. And I knew, based on the way they operated, they weren't just hiding from embarrassment. They were regrouping. They always did. Because in their eyes, this wasn't a lesson learned. It was a battle lost. And they'd be back, sooner or later. But this time, I wasn't going to wait for the next hit. I had one more move left. One last piece I hadn't used. The gift box. The receipts. The evidence. Because I didn't just send it to the venue. I sent the second copy to Jordan's mother. You see, Lauren had always been careful about how she portrayed herself to Jordan's side of the family. To them, she was sweet, responsible, and down to earth. She'd done everything in her power to mask the entitled, manipulative person she was when the cameras were off. At every family gathering, she'd tell them how she was saving for the wedding herself, how she wanted to keep things intimate and affordable, and how her amazing fiancé deserved a stress-free planning experience. But Jordan's mom, Evelyn, was sharp. She never fully bought into the act. Whenever I saw her at events, she'd ask quiet, probing questions. Nothing overtly hostile, but careful. She was kind to me. The kind of person who observed instead of interrupting. The kind of person who noticed who was being talked over and who wasn't talking at all. So I sent her everything. A printed folder with a small note tucked inside. Since the wedding was a gift from the family, I figured your family should know who gave it. Daniel. 3 days after the canceled wedding, I got an email from her. Subject, thank you. She didn't write much, just that she appreciated the transparency and that it confirmed some things she'd suspected. She said Jordan was staying with them for now, and that he was taking a lot of time to think. The email didn't promise anything, but it didn't need to, because the next day, Lauren went live on Instagram. No filter, no ring. The comments were brutal. Half her followers were furious. The other half were confused. She gave some vague excuse about vendor fraud and last-minute sabotage, but her voice shook the entire time. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was fear, because her mask had finally cracked. That same week, Mom called again. This time, she left a voicemail. Her tone was measured but bitter. Daniel, I don't know what you think you've accomplished. You embarrassed this family. You made Lauren look like a fool. You made me look like a fool. But I want you to remember something. No matter how much money you make, no matter how many power plays you think you've pulled, you're still alone. We are your only family. And one day, you're going to regret this. I listened to it 3 times. And then I deleted it. Because the truth is, I didn't regret any of it. In fact, I finally understood something I should have realized years ago. I was never truly part of their family, not the way they defined it. To them, family meant loyalty without limits. It meant obedience. It meant quietly funding their lives while pretending they were the ones who built something. But real family, real love, it isn't built on guilt or manipulation. And I wasn't going to be their foundation anymore. Not long after that, I went through my accounts and closed every shared card, every authorized user profile, froze the backup credit lines they'd never officially asked for but still used. I even sold the second car that sat in my dad's driveway, the one I had bought as a loaner years ago and somehow never got back. They didn't respond to the notices, but I knew they saw them. My sister's fiancé moved out. The wedding was off. The refunds hit my account, one by one, over the next 2 weeks. I made sure each one cleared, then quietly donated a large portion to a local scholarship fund. One specifically aimed at kids trying to escape toxic households. Felt right. The last thread was the family business. A tiny consulting firm my parents had started, which I'd been silently funding for months. I hadn't told anyone, but I owned the LLC. Legally. Paperwork they never read. Terms they never understood when they'd asked me to help set things up properly. They thought they were in control. They weren't. So I shut it down. Not out of spite, but because they didn't deserve to keep using my money to pretend they'd built something themselves. They didn't even fight it. I think they knew better by then. There was one final message from Lauren, though. A handwritten letter that showed up 2 weeks after the collapse. Daniel, I don't know what you want from me. An apology? A breakdown? Fine. I messed up. I got carried away. I let mom get into my head. I thought you wouldn't care. I thought maybe you were just used to it by now. I didn't realize you hated us this much. I hope you're happy. The wedding's off. Jordan's gone. Mom isn't speaking to anyone. Dad's pretending none of this happened. And I'm sitting here wondering how I became the villain. But maybe I always was. Lauren, I folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer. Not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder. Because that letter, while dressed in apology, still never once acknowledged what she'd done. She was sorry for the consequences, not the betrayal. So no, I didn't respond. Not to her. Not to mom. Not to any of them. Instead, I finally started living my own life. On my terms. I moved. Upgraded to a quiet condo overlooking the city skyline. Took a long vacation with actual friends. People who knew me as Daniel the person, not Daniel the wallet. I picked up photography again. Even started dating. Slowly. Cautiously. Because the truth is, healing doesn't happen all at once. It's not a big moment of clarity. It's 100 tiny moments of choosing yourself over the people who taught you not to. It's walking past a wedding venue and not flinching. It's deleting old voicemails without replaying them. It's finally knowing that silence isn't the same as peace, but sometimes it's a start. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.